Contextual constraints. In this module, we are going to try to understand what are the contextual constraints that can affect the interpretation of a speech event. Now, we have already discussed that if we want to see or we want to understand as a researcher the dynamics of the speech or the dynamics of the dialogue that is going on, we need to take into account the linguistic repertoire of the speakers. By linguistic repertoire, we would mean what are the languages that these people already know and what access do they have to certain dialects of the language. We also need to understand the internal cultural differences operative within a society or within a speech community when we go into research. And the third thing we need to understand is what are the relevant features of social organization within that community. So what are the occupational differences, what is the social hierarchy, and how do things work? Now we also discussed that when speakers are choosing between alternate languages, when they are code switching, or when they use one language instead of the other, then that actually symbolizes that they are trying to assert a different kind of identity. So the choice of language, the code switching itself is also meaningful. It carries a message, and that is specifically the message that we are interested in this module. Having said that, one needs to understand that there is no one-to-one relationship between the language variety somebody chooses and an identity that you would say that person has. There is no one-to-one relationship because identities themselves are fractured, and there are times when you would like to impose another identity. Not only that, how you value a language within a given speech community or a cluster of people within a speech community, that would be different. If, for instance, somebody knows language R and language B, so we cannot say with definitively that language R is the language that will always be valued more than language B. So given the context, it is a possibility that in that community, language B is more valued than language A or language R. This is what we are talking about. We are saying that there is at times a lack of consistency of valuing a language because a language in itself does not carry any intrinsic value. Value is something that we attach to it, and by attaching a certain kind of value to a language, we also attach to it a certain social meaning. And that social meaning then moves on to the speaker. Then we need to identify at times not one sort of identity but multiple identities. For instance, you being educated over here in this urban area, for instance, when you want to go back to the rural context and talk to your community, you might simultaneously need to assert two different identities. A local identity because you want to tell them that you are a part of their group, but at the same time you would like to at times also assert an educated identity more related to that of a middle class value. So, what we are saying is that more contextual information is needed to interpret what is going on when you go in the field. Now, Himes would say that this speech act, this speech event, actually has participants, speakers, audiences, addressees, and ecological surroundings and topic range. These three things, he would argue, are important to take into account to understand a speech event, and we totally agree with it. And we add to it also that interpretation is a layered process of understanding. Has to be understood at different levels. And these levels are the levels of time, duration, at what time it occurs, setting, situation, and event. And next time we meet, we will talk about what each of these components actually mean.